Ads ruining your favourite cycling podcast? Sick of shallow bike reviews? Escape Collective is different. We deliver the content you crave without the distractions. We're member supported, and that means ad-free podcasts, independent and honest reporting, and real conversations within a passionate community. It's a better way to experience cycling media. Join us at escapecollective.com/join.
Welcome back to the Placeholder Podcast, everybody. I'm Caley Fretz. We got a great show for you this week. We got Dauphiné, we got Unbound, we got Canada Corner, one of my favorite corners. Joining me today, Jonny Long, welcome.
What's up? Hello, everyone.
And Dane Cash, welcome to the show.
Hey, Caley.
Question for you guys. What did you do to celebrate World Bicycle Day yesterday? That was Monday, June 3rd. Did you do anything special?
I rode my bike. Does that count?
Dane, you had almost nothing happening going on last weekend.
Well, I got married, but then I rode off all of the brownies and extra wedding food calories by climbing a very hard climb yesterday.
Nice.
What did you do?
Super James climb here in Boulder.
Super James. That's the name of a...
Well, you go to Jamestown and then you keep going. And
okay.
Yeah.
that's why it's called that.
Congratulations, Dane, for getting married.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks,
huge.
Kelly. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah.
Was it...
Your lovely wife is lovely, and you're
And a cyclist as well. Yeah.
And a cyclist as well. Yeah.
Was that a strict criteria before popping the question?
Clearly not to start dating, because she only became a cyclist, in our time together. Yeah.
Did I see on Discord about that you had some Lord of the Rings themed stuff?
Quite a bit of that. Yeah, our wedding
I love
invitations. We had a bunch of things. Lots of Lord of the Rings themed things. Got some really great cookies that were all like Lord of the Rings art. Yeah. Very heavily Tolkien.
Did you ride in on a white horse to the altar?
We probably should have. Now that I think of it, that would have been really great. Although the horse would have had to climb up Flagstaff, which, if again another cycling climb, Boulder people will know is a very hard climb. So yeah, Shadowfax could do it though. It's the last.
Well, congratulations, Dane.
He's got the watts.
Congratulations, Dane. We're very happy for you. Let's get into cycling for this week. We got a whole bunch to talk about. Let's kick off with Unbound. So Unbound Gravel happened over the weekend. Obviously, the sort of main event there, the 200-mile elite races. We had Rosa Klöser won the women's race, a German PhD student. Fascinating woman. This seems to be just incredibly common that some of the best female bike racers in the world are also PhD students.
It's because they're real people and not like big dumb jocks.
That does help, I think. Yeah. And then obviously on the men's side, a winner about whom I don't think anybody could be disappointed, with the possible exception of Chad Haga, I think.
Chad Haga fans disappointed probably.
I mean, but even Chad Haga fans would have to be pretty happy with Lachlan winning Unbound.
You're right. Yeah.
Like if you're gonna pick if you're Chad Haga's wife or child, you're still probably like, okay, if Chad couldn't win, at least Lachlan won.
If
right?
it's anyone. Yeah.
It was a great race. It was a fascinating race, actually. So for the first time ever, they split off the men's and women's elite fields, which was really cool. So about a 25-minute gap at the start. Obviously, you need you can't set them off 5 minutes apart in a race that takes 9 to 11 hours. So you need a bit of a gap in there. And it really changed the dynamic, particularly obviously on the women's side. Men's race, the front group tended to sort of separate itself anyway, but the women always had to contend with sort of like the back markers of the men's elite field, right? And it really changed the dynamic of those races. And the general consensus, I think, from the women's field after the weekend was that it was a significant improvement, sort of separate the whole thing out. Had sort of like much more dynamic tactics, less kind of groups getting brought back together by male racers and things like that. So yeah, I think that the general consensus was that was a success, and I would imagine that we're going to see more of that from the Lifetime series going forward. But the other interesting thing to me was that both races felt more like road races, like a one-day classic, than any edition of Unbound that I've certainly ever seen.
They certainly had the personnel. I mean, Greg Van Avermaet, Matej Mohoric were there on the men's side, along with a bunch of other former or current, mostly former World Tour pros. So that may have helped. I mean, the way that they wrote it. Also, the fact that in both cases you didn't have a single rider like 10 hours in front of everybody else was quite nice. It made things a little bit more interesting.
The example for me would be actually Chad Hage's team. So Chad Hage was second. For those who, I think there was an odd number of people online over the weekend who didn't know who Chad Hage was, which really surprised me. Maybe like if you're just a gravel follower, you're not super familiar with him, but like he's one of, I think, about a dozen Americans to have ever won a Giro d'Italia stage, for example. Won a time trial, was second to, I think, what's Tom Dumoulin in the World Championship time trial. Like serious athlete Chad is. Retired a couple years ago from, maybe last year, from road racing. Was with sort of the various iterations of DSM for most of his career, and then went and raced with Human Powered Health for a year, and is now on the Pas Normal gravel squad, which is mostly European based. And that team raced like a road team, right? Like they had guys going off like 25 miles in, like the Doom breakaway, right? It was like a long Giro stage where someone was going out to get TV coverage, except there was no TV coverage, of course. But yeah, it just felt very much like a Paris-Roubaix that was 2.5 hours longer is really what it started to feel like to me.
Is this a good thing? Are people generally happy that this is happening? What's the vibe?
I'm gonna posit. I think it's a good thing. It makes racing probably significantly better to watch, and yet at the same time, I bet a lot of gravel racers themselves do not think it's a good thing.
So a lot of the mountain bikers in particular were like, so much negative racing, negative tactics, and all the road racers were like, I think you just mean tactics. Yeah. I think that's what you're actually referring to. It's like, we tried to win the race in a way that was more than just an exercise contest. I think that's basically what it ended up being. Yeah, and the Pas Normal team, like, to their credit, they made a bunch of moves, and then Chad Hage and Lachlan Morton ended up off the front, and Chad very well could have won that race. It could have been very successful for them. Second place is still massive for Chad. I'm personally a huge fan of Chad Hage. He's just a super, super nice guy. He was first dad, which as a dad, I applaud, because Lachlan Morton isn't chasing a toddler around all the time. So I think it's pretty impressive. His day was pretty impressive, and yeah, it was a great race.
I believe he was the first professional bike racer I ever interviewed. Actually, Chad Hage, like
really
10 years ago. Yeah. So nice to see him up there.
Yeah, he was based out of Fort Collins. So I've chatted with him a couple different times. He rode for the same amateur team as me about a year after I left it and started to work at Velonews back in the day. I think he's a month older than me. So yeah.
Caley Fretz for Unbound Podium 2025 then.
Probably not. I don't even think I couldn't even win first dad. I wouldn't even be close, actually.
Yeah.
I'd be like 10th dad.
There's probably a fair few dads in gravel.
Yeah, there's a lot of dads race in there. Yeah. Other Unbound stories. I mean, Mate Mohoric, the quote unquote gravel world champion, was there. I guess it was kind of neat to see rainbow stripes on the start of Unbound. He didn't make it very far. Ended up with 3 flats and I think a broken wheel is what ended up sending him out of the race. And he admitted ahead of time that he didn't do much sort of like recon or research or anything like that. And one of the major changes from a tech perspective this year was the tires are just getting bigger and bigger. So if you listen to our special with Alex Howes last week, Alex had a bit of a rough go of it physically over the weekend, but nothing wrong with his tire selection. No flats or anything like that. And there's lots of riders are running like 50 mil tires now, like big fatty. That's basically a mountain bike tire, right? And Mohoric was maybe on something a bit light and a bit narrow for the North course, and suffered the consequences, but seemed to be enjoying himself out there anyway.
Why did he go? Do we know? Was it a sponsor thing? Was it he just wanted to go and wear the rainbow jersey like one time?
He's never really explained that, I don't think.
Okay.
My assumption was just, he's the world champ. It is the biggest gravel race in the world, right? It's like, I mean, I'm sure others would maybe claim otherwise, but I can tell you right now that based purely off of sort of interest and traffic on our website, it is like far and away. And granted, we don't cover a ton of gravel, but it's far and away the biggest thing going. So, if you're in the world champ stripes, I think that's perfectly reasonable to want to go and show up and try. I mean, if he hadn't flatted, right, if he had better tire selection, he probably would have been in it to win it, right? I mean, he's a pretty phenomenal athlete. So, yeah.
Thousands of people like sign up to to try to race this thing every year. So obviously it's fun for some people.
Yeah.
So maybe he just wanted to have fun.
Fun's maybe the wrong word.
Well,
Type 2 fun.
Lachlan Morton, he's saying it's getting less fun. Like there was a quote from Rouleur being passed around in sort of a lot of in a preview I think I saw on Cycling News, where he said that sort of each year with Unbound, it's becoming more and more like what he was trying to leave behind in the World Tour, like pressure, performance, a sort of circus. But then he goes and wins the thing and is quite happy about it. So that's probably, I guess there's probably no harm in winning it. And maybe it's probably more fun to win something that you find yourself becoming less attached to over time. But it's also hard for, what is he searching for? Like to be a part of, like, some people probably unfairly call it like the influencer world championships. But he is like, he's the best influencer of the ones out there. But
like accidental influencer. Yeah.
Well, accidental in some way, but
I think it's more. I think a lot of what Lachlan does is more intentional than he lets on.
Yeah,
I'll put it that way.
Which isn't a bad thing, obviously, but it's just hard. It's hard to. Everyone seems with Unbound and Gravel to be trying to keep this thing that they call precious as something that didn't necessarily ever exist in the way that they thought it did. I don't have much. Yeah. I'm kind of talking without much knowledge, but that seems to be the case with things, right? Is that if it was your thing that was special and then you want it to succeed, but then it'll become a victim of its own success. I don't know.
Well, it's the whole spirit of Gravel thing, right? Like it's kind of silly at this point. I chucked a little thing on Threads, because we're on Threads. Of course we're on Threads, right? Got to be on Threads. That if Lachlan Morton can win Unbound, then the spirit of Gravel is probably doing just fine. Which
what you're doing with that.
I knew exactly what I was doing with that. I went Threads viral, whatever that means.
Did you?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. It has a couple hundred likes.
Whoa.
Which we don't have that many follows on Threads, so I think that's pretty good. No, like, it's funny. Lachlan's funny, right? Because the vibes are very chill, right? Like he posted about like cracking a beer the night before, like he's hanging out, but the dude trains like a madman, right? Like Jonathan Vaughters has told me before that one of the issues with him road racing is he just like refused to rest before races because he just wanted to ride his bike like 6 hours a day. So he'd like show up to the Dauphiné. He's like already tired because he'd been riding 6 hours a day the entire week beforehand. That's just what he does, right? And he had stuff like a built-in bladder inside his skin suit, right? So like he pays attention to the things I think that matter, right? The things that might make you win. And then he really chills out with the stuff that probably doesn't really matter. Like you can have a beer the night before. You can have a 4% Coors the night before Unbound, and it's not going to affect your performance all that much, right? Whereas like I guarantee you that most of the people in the elite fields aren't doing that, right? Like they're taking both things seriously. And I think that's the big difference with Lachlan. That's enough Unbound. I enjoyed it over the weekend. I enjoyed watching it on the Instagram live. I think that they need to get a feed going, but maybe next year. We need to head into a new corner for us.
Oh,
a new corner, a sticky maple syrup covered corner. It's Canada corner. What's going on with the Canadians this week, Jonny?
Well, Derek G won a stage 3 of the Dauphiné, and with that took the yellow jersey. He leads Magnus Cort by 3 seconds. So that's fun. Derek G, after getting his 4th second place at the Giro last year, Canada's very own, finally pops up with a decent sized win.
Does anybody else, when you see the yellow jersey at the Dauphiné, get like a little excited? Mm-hmm. Like a little heart flutter, right? Because it's the same jersey. It's that very precise color, and the LCL logo is just like really nice and crisp, and sort of like it's such a perfect leader's jersey. And I get this little like,
and it's the same TV graphics. So you have to remind yourself that the tour hasn't started. You're watching the Dauphiné, but there's a split second where you're just brought back in like, oh no, wait, it's not started yet.
I love it.
But yeah.
I get excited about it. We also have, so first of all, congrats to Derek G. Congrats to all of Canada for taking the yellow jersey at the Dauphiné. Congrats to Abby Mickey, our resident Canadian. Congrats to Jared, our other resident Canadian.
Wade also.
Wade. Wow. Does Wade count anymore? I think he votes in Australia now.
Does he?
He counts. I hope Abby's not listening.
Let's ask.
He counts as much as Abby.
We'll ask Wade what he thinks, because we got in some hot water over the weekend for kind of claiming Lachlan Morton as a North American.
I mean, he's lived here for a long time.
He's lived he was in Boulder before I got there, he's got the accent still. He's got the Aussie accent, but like that dude doesn't spend much time in Australia.
I always forget he's Australian.
Nah, he's been here for a very long time. Anyway, congrats to Canada. We've got a little bit more in our Canadian corner. So, notable Canadian and the first man to ever finish the Tour de France and run a sub 4-minute mile, Michael Woods.
Nice.
Is he spatting with Chris Froome or not spatting with Chris Froome? So L'Equipe, what did L'Equipe say?
Okay, so L'Equipe's article alleged that there's a whole battle for leadership within Israel Premier Tech between Chris Froome and Michael Woods. So last year, Michael Woods won it, got the spot on the tour team. Chris Froome not allowed on the tour team because Michael Woods wanted to be, everyone supporting him. He did win the stage 9, I think it was, the Puy de Dôme. So fair enough.
Yeah.
This year, obviously Froome didn't get selected for tour. There's a whole, multitudes of YouTube videos and stuff explaining why he didn't and all that sort of jazz, as the late Froome era dictates. This year, Michael Woods DNF'd the Giro in the first week after a bad crash, and he's still out concussed, I think. So he's obviously not an option probably not an option for the Tour this year. Maybe he is, but definitely not going in with the same form as last year. So that brings Froome back into the picture in terms of what Israel Premier Tech want to get out the Tour. The sponsors obviously all keen to have Froome there just because he'll get asked a bunch of questions every day, be on the TV with all the sponsors there. So what L'Equipe is saying is that there has been strings pulled to make sure that Froome is the guy at the Tour, which obviously he wouldn't be getting. The idea is that he's not going to be selected on form at the minute because he was finished 15 minutes back at the Dauphiné on stage 2.
So he got dropped yesterday.
And
stage 2 was like...
Guys, he's doing teamwork to help set up Derek G. All right?
No, the Froome defender is logged on.
It's a team effort. And, everybody's happy with the team result today.
I always wondered who was operating Michelle Froome's Twitter account for, and now we know. Okay, but
that is a heavy accusation. Actually,
I forgot about that. Sorry, Dane. Sorry. That's not the entry you want into married life. Is getting those sorts of accusations.
Accusation, Jonny.
But the big but here is Froome replied to the story being posted on Twitter by being like, "Oh, this isn't real," and then I added Michael Woods, who then also said like, "Yeah, it's not true." But then they would say that, so who knows what to believe? The French journalists who don't like Froome, or Froome and Woods who maybe don't like each other and probably don't like L'Equipe.
L'Equipe is generally pretty reliable. There's probably a grain of truth to this. What probably is there's probably sponsor pressure to have Froome there, right? That's probably the grain of truth underneath all of this. That makes perfect sense. If you're a sponsor, exactly what you said, Jonny, like you want him on television every morning, right? Like Eurosport will go find him. He'll be on TV every morning. You want that. He'll say something. He'll get dropped. Like that's where we are with Chris Froome right now. But I can't imagine. Well, first of all, you guys know Mike? Have you guys chatted with Mike Woods ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a pretty nice guy.
He's like the nicest.
There's no way Canadian. He could have a tip.
He's the nicest man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't actually think he has a spatting bone in him. I don't think.
Probably not. I mean, probably not. Not probably. Probably not. You're probably right. But then Froome seems like that as well. But then you hear different things. Like, are they just having a nice guy off?
No, Froome.
Yeah, I don't.
He's got some grudges.
Froome can be very polite, but those are two different things.
Oh, different things. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Well, I think the thing that's most striking is that half of Israel Premier Tech's riders are above the age of 30, and it's the two oldest who are basically vying for dominance. So they need to figure their stuff out, especially because Froome is contracted until the end of 2025. And what has caused the big rift is how much money he's getting paid to be not that great. And so if you are a rider who's performing, like Michael Woods is, that's the other thing that the L'Equipe article alleged was, it was like, what's going on here, guys? Like any organization, right? If you're paying someone a lot of money to not do very much.
I mean, to be fair, I don't blame Froome for that. I blame the people who chose to give him all that money.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's why Froome, when he drops off the Tour peloton, he's happy to he just smiles to the camera because he's like, you know what, my life's I won my tours, I got my money.
Yeah.
Have we should we do some kind of calculation on like dollar per kilometer raced or something like that?
I would say that seems harsh, but then he has more money than I could probably ever even count to. So it doesn't seem that cruel. I think we should do it per wave, like per wave to the camera or per smile.
He and Mike Woods both are going to have to perform if they're going to beat Derek G to the leadership role, the man currently leading the Dauphiné. By the time you listen to this podcast, he might not be anymore. But, wearing that yellow jersey looks pretty good. I don't know, just saying.
I mean, Froome's not going to be the leader of that team, right? Like, they're going for stage wins. That's what so Derek G will be there. And I mean, if you got 8 guys and you're going for stage wins, which means you don't need to like protect a GC leader. You don't need to create a sprint train. You don't need to do any of that stuff. You just have like 8 dudes trying to get in a breakaway every morning, basically. Like send to Chris Froome. Like, why not? I mean, if the whole point is publicity, you got 7 guys for winning bike races, and you have 1 Chris Froome to do
media
TV spots in the morning.
Like Sagan, like when Sagan's last year's when he wasn't really going to win a stage, he'd just be there with his own press officer, and the rest of his teammates would just be sat on the bus, just preparing.
Yeah. Froome was like third on Alpe d'Huez 2 years ago from a breakaway. So
the Pidcock
that's his best
stage.
That's the best place to send him, I think, a breakaway.
All right. Well, that's enough of Canadian Corner. Congrats to all the Canadians out there. We're very happy for you.
Congrats to Chris Froome.
Congrats. No. When we come back, Unchained is coming. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. We are conducting our first listener survey for everyone who consumes this podcast, listens to this podcast. We want to know what you like about this show, what you think needs improvement, what other podcasts you'd like to hear from Escape Collective. Your input shapes the direction of this podcast, as well as the ones we create in the future. So head over to escapecollective.com/survey. Fill out the survey. All of your information is kept private for the sole purpose of making us better. Please go do that. Let us know what you think. It's very helpful. That's escapecollective.com/survey. Guys, Unchained is coming. Netflix's Tour de France series. Last year's was pretty darn good. We did a whole sort of pod series around it. I think we're going to do that again. Kit Nicholson is heading up that particular project, but it's coming back. And we know some things about it. What are the fun ones? There's some juicy stuff in it, right, Jonny?
Yeah, it's still the worst named Netflix series of all time, Unchained. Like, I forgot about it because you can put it on the back burner for most of the year, but then it comes back and you're like, why is this thing called Unchained? Like, who made that decision? We need to talk to them. But the juicy
really
thing,
quickly, it's. I mean, the show is French, right? And then they're like a lot of English language translations. And I just want to point out that one of the most famous Spanish language shows in the world also has a horrible English title. Money Heist.
But it's not like they're Google translating it.
Well, I'm just thinking that Netflix's translation title people are really bad. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Let's blame them.
Money Heist, Unchained. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad you got that off your chest, Dane.
Thank you.
The juicy bits. Vingegaard apologized to Wout van Aert. I'm just reciting the sort of news headlines I've seen. He apologized to Van Aert after not chasing down Victor Lafay for a potential stage win. Tom Pidcock and Carlos Rodriguez were having a bit of a tussle for leadership in the Ineos Grenadiers team, and there's apparently a bit where Tom Pidcock tells the cameras to go away. Can you believe it? But the big... do you want to jump in for the big bit?
I want to jump into the Wout van Aert Vingegaard thing, because we mentioned that on the podcast last year and got a bunch of heat for it.
Did we?
Because we were like, because we mentioned the fact that if Vingegaard had pulled, Lafay probably wouldn't have stayed off the front, but Vingegaard refused to sort of do the lead out thing.
I think he was supposedly told by Grisha Neerman, the motorbike man, to stay on Pogacar's wheel. But Vingegaard could have made his own decision, as many adult men do on a daily basis.
We got some heat for manufacturing controversy there, but
Did
if
we?
you
From
felt
who?
the need to just the internet,
people,
the internet out there, they like yelling.
Jonny
at us
wants their
sometimes.
names.
No, I just can't remember. I think that's how I managed to get out of bed every day. Is I just don't remember what I did the previous day.
It wasn't a lot. All right, it was like
a few people.
Some of our. I'm not going to name names, but there was some of our frequent commenters who happened to be fans of Visma.
Gotcha.
Were displeased that they felt we were manufacturing controversy, but we were like, no, that's legit. And I would just want to say that we were. Yeah,
well,
turns out we were at least a little bit right.
Let's manufacture some proper controversy this year, because then we'll at least have a 50% strike rate. Anyway, the big story, the big revelation, at least in my mind and my day-to-day life, is that after Jonas Vingegaard's dominant time trial win at Combloux, I think it was, where he just absolutely silenced the tour, and it was just like, race over, we might as well all go home. And there were maybe a few questions being asked, and Vingegaard had to come out and say stuff like, I would never take anything I would give to my child. Which, does that include caffeine gels? Need to know that.
I personally wouldn't give a caffeine gel to my toddler, because you would ruin your day.
Exactly, right? Richard Plugger admitted to putting out into ether the whole thing with him accusing Groupama FDJ of drinking beers like on the rest day, which I think was Mark Madio hit back at and was like, it wasn't the riders, and anyway, what are you doing, like chatting about our team? And Richard Plugger was like, that I did that on purpose to distract from people talking about Vingegaard, which is devious. So is Machiavellian.
Our podcast, where we spent significant time on this subject because we thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
we were useful idiots here.
Of course,
and that's why. Yeah, we're. I mean, yeah, I know it's filled like every other newsletter that I've written since the tour last year. Will we change our ways? No. Does it? But on a serious note, does it reshape how you look at it? Because if you're Richard Plugger and you're doing these sort of mind games behind the scenes to, take heat off of your ride or whatever, yeah, that can just be like normal, right? You're trying to win the yellow jersey, that's all that matters. But there's a bit much, no? Like, you've got Jonas Vingegaard out there being like, I am so clean, I'm cleaner than clean, but then you've got his boss being like, no, we need to get the psyops here, we need to be putting things in the Reddit feeds, we need to be saying stuff in the press.
He's got a media background. I was
gonna say, I think people forget he's a journalist, and like,
yeah, but that's not a precursor to doing like evil shit, is it?
I'm just saying he knows what he's doing. Like he has talent at it.
Yeah. No, but you understand communication. You understand how to move narrative, I think, pretty well when you've done this for long enough. You understand what lands, right? Like he knew exactly what to say to get us to talk about something else. He knew exactly what to say, right? And it wasn't really damaging to anybody. It was just sort of this kind of silly thing that we could get our teeth into, and the world cycling media could get our teeth into, and we could switch. Like, it's a try to true tactic, right? It's a distraction technique. I don't necessarily think it's nefarious. I just think that, if I'm running a team, whether we're clean or not, I don't really want to talk about that. Right? Like every time
fine.
because you're trying to prove a negative, right? Let's say Visma Lease Bike is entirely clean. They're 100% clean. You're proving you're trying to prove a negative by talking to the press, which is it's a battle you cannot win, right? So if I am running PR for a professional cycling team, the second that topic comes up, whether we're clean or not, I'm talking about Mark Madio drinking beer, like instantly, right? Like it almost makes me respect Richard Plugger slightly more.
Really?
Like in a weird way. Like, yeah, it's cynical, but like he kind of just doing his job there. Right? He's kind of protecting his team.
If the team is, doing bad things, then
if we're working off the clean assumption,
right,
I should say,
then it is maybe nefarious. But if the team is not, then I completely agree. You're not going to win talking to the French press about doping. We've seen this for the last decade. They're just going to keep asking you. It's not going to be good for you. There's nothing good's going to come of it for your team, even if you're not doping. So talk about beer.
Clearly, I'm too innocent, but I think also I just wanted to believe in that the beer wars were like a real thing, and they weren't just.
That's the sad thing.
That's the real sad. That's the real tragedy here. But also boasting about it on the Netflix show. I mean, you don't need to take. You need to give yourself your own flowers, do you? Like I did such a good job.
Isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we want out of the Netflix show, though?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, but then I want to be able to also be like shaking fist emoji, being like, "God damn you, Richard Plugger!" For
that's true. I mean, he still ruined our beer narrative, which we really enjoyed last year. So, because now we can't talk about that this year.
I'm going to double down. I'm going to double down. I'm going to go further into further down the plug hole.
Well, so Unchained in general
It's coming back.
Like I said, we're gonna have podcast episodes diving into each one of these episodes. So I think it launches on June 11th. So is that
today.
next? Yeah, next Tuesday. So a week today. So next Wednesday we will have the first of these episodes. They will exist on their own little Unchained channel. You can go find them there. And yeah, we'll dive into it. As everybody I think that listens to this podcast regularly knows, Kit Nicholson is a huge sort of film and TV buff, so she's going to be kind of leading the way on those episodes. Of course, the rest of us, we're on the ground at the tour last year. So I think our sort of primary pitch in this is hopefully we'll be able to provide some insight into, is that how it actually happened? Because we were there and we saw some of these things go down. We did spot ourselves in the last episode or the last series. I think Mikey and I were wandering in a parking lot, and it was a drone shot. That's all we got, unfortunately, last time. So I'm intrigued to see whether we spot ourselves once again. But anyway, keep an eye out for that. Starting next week. It's good fun. Like, we really like diving deep into these episodes and talking about what's real and what's not so much. It
just gets you excited for the tour, really. The reviews have been good as well, saying like the first year was a bit of a primer, and this one really sort of, it's less crashy and it's more like building the dynamic. And to be honest, even if like some of the dynamics are portrayed in an exaggerated way, I mean, the whole idea is entertainment, right? Like, if Pidcock and Rodriguez weren't really at each other's throats, does it matter? Like, there's at least something there to base it on.
Yeah. By the way, Jack Haig chatted with Carlos Rodriguez for his Rest Day with Jack Haig podcast over the weekend. It's a great interview. They're both up in Tenerife, I was right at the end of Jack's altitude stint before he headed off to the Dauphiné. I think Carlos as well. Really, really interesting conversation. Carlos is like quite well spoken in English, and just a good chat about altitude, how they manage that, how they manage their training up there. Some of Carlos's he's got university degrees and a little bit of a sort of insight into who he is as a character. So go check that one out. The Rest Day with Jack Haig. You can find that again. You can just search The Rest Day with Jack Haig on wherever you get your podcasts, or you can get it in the same everything feed where you probably listen to this podcast. Just scroll down a little bit. Last on our list today, we got some TDF updates. I'm getting excited by the yellow jersey at the Dauphiné. We've got Unchained coming next week. The Tour de France is only a couple weeks away. I mean, literally, it's 21 days.
Flights are booked.
On a plane to Florence. Flights are booked. Hotels are booked. I just had to switch vehicles for us, Johnny. We now have, do you remember that what was it called? A link something?
Oh, not a Linky. Linking Co.
Linking Co. That one. We had this at the Classics Cup a year, and I think that's what we might have now, which is like a plug-in hybrid thing.
Okay. Good
so
for
we have to plug it
podcast,
in.
Bad for driving.
we have to, it was a perfectly fine vehicle, but we have to plug it in, or else we only have like 100 miles of range or something like that. So we're trying to be, better for the environment. It's got 75 miles of plugged in range every day, which should cover most of our, not how Ronan drives, but it should cover most of our driving every day electric. So I like that. I don't know anything else about this car other than that's what I booked. And we may not even get it. We'll probably get like a Peugeot 308 or something like that, right? Like that's probably what we'll end up with. Anyway, why did I go on that little tangent? The Tour de France is coming, and we just wanted to talk about sort of prep for it. So where riders are, what's going on, some of the other storylines. I think that the biggest one is obviously the big question is Jonas Vingegaard and whether he will be prepared. We did have some quotes last week from Machin, who's the sort of like GM over at UAE, so Pogacar's general manager. He was claiming that he thinks Jonas Vingegaard is going to be just fine. He's going to show up at the Tour ready and raring to go. He's at altitude right now. What do we think? Do we think that is in any way reasonable?
He even went so far as to say he was the, quote, big favorite for the Tour, which is...
I mean, that's just like really basic mind games, isn't it?
That's a lot. That's a lot to say. I do personally think that Vingegaard very much could be fit, ready to race the Tour. I don't think it's completely outside the realm of possibility. I think it's a kind of a coin flip. I'm thinking at this point. Like I give it 50-50.
You better hope so, otherwise you're doing everything.
Untrue, Johnny. I'm already not in last place, and Carlos Rodriguez is going to be one spot higher on the GC if Jonas Vingegaard doesn't race the Tour. So either way, I'm doing pretty great.
Wait. So you're saying it's 50-50 that he races the Tour, or 50-50 that he is good at the Tour?
I think it's good at the Tour. I feel like he's going to race. I feel like there's enough hope and hype at this team that I think he's actually going to race the Tour.
So one of the other bits that came out of Unchained from last year was some like kind of quite intimate moments with Pogačar and his concerns about his preparation and whether he was fully prepared. Because remember, he had a wrist fracture coming out of Liège. His preparation for the Tour de France was definitely not ideal. That was like 10% the injuries that Vingegaard had around the same time, right? So if Pogačar, who is like a notoriously chill, relatively, rider, was that concerned about his preparation for the Tour de France going sideways because of this injury, surely Vingegaard is like way more concerned. And surely the chance of him being good at the Tour, and I mean like in contention for the win at the Tour de France, is less than 50%. Surely.
Well, it's just hard to know what to believe. Like, yeah, I completely agree. And I think there were some quotes out there from someone, or just like quoting sources saying that Vingegaard is like just nervous about the whole thing. But I swear every pre-tour, it's like, oh, Vingegaard's nervous. And it's like, well, yeah, most people are probably a bit nervous. Like, it's this huge thing where there's massive expectation on your back. But yeah, his injuries were crazy. Like he couldn't leave hospital for like weeks, right? Because he couldn't fly home because he had his punctured lung. And from UAE's perspective, you might as well talk Vingegaard up, because then it puts the pressure on him. And then also, if UAE are right that he's that good, then you look back and you're like, it's a safety mechanism.
So I got three thoughts. The first is they both returned to training at around the same time of gap before the Tour de France, because Pogačar didn't start riding again on the road until like the last day of May last year. So Vingegaard has already been on the road for a little while, and that's actually pretty similar timeline of gap between the return to training and Tour. Second of all, Vingegaard won the Tour last year, although it was an extremely close and awesome and fun to watch right up until it wasn't. He won the Tour by a huge margin in the end. He's really good.
Yeah.
And three, I think I don't think enough is being made that Tadej Pogačar just raced the Giro. It's really, 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 really hard to race the Giro Tour double. And the fact that he crushed the Giro field, given who was at the Giro, no shade to those riders. I think that my
I hear shade.
Maybe a little
Do you
bit
hear shade? I hear shade.
I can see the shade now that we're being
deep
brought
dark.
into the video.
I just talked to Danny Martinez last week. He was spectacular. I don't want to shade Danny Martinez, but I also don't think that he is quite the level of riders Primož Roglič, for instance.
That's shade.
Anyway,
well, Primož Roglič needs to stay upright on his bike for a change, doesn't he?
Well, that's a goal.
So that's a good segue into the. Let's talk about some of the other riders that are going to be in contention, right? So Roglič crashed today at the Dauphiné. It's Tuesday. Was it stage 3 today? Fell down. Seems to be okay, but falling down in the lead up to the Tour de France is never ideal.
No, never.
And he also has a history of he crashes sometimes. That's a thing that he has done.
It's just going to be sad if he's got that new Red Bull kit on, and in the first stage he's just like half is ripped off his torso. Just like
I actually just in the How the Race Was Won podcast, I actually hyped up Rog, because I think Roglič is actually going to be really strong at this tour.
I agree with you. I think it's his last shot. I think it's his best shot. The two guys he absolutely cannot beat when they're at their prime are not at their prime.
Right.
Right. So like it's his only year. And I think he probably knows that. And maybe, we can get a bit conspiratorial here. Maybe that's why he fell down today. Maybe he's just a little stressed out. He knows this is it. That's what I would worry about with Roglič, is just like, dude needs to chill. Dude needs to like take a step back and not fall off his bike for not just this week, but 3 weeks during the Tour de France. I think this could be like, I would put him as my list of favorites. Actually, maybe this is a fun way to do it. My list of favorites.
Yeah, go on. Who pin at the top?
We'll see if this changes between now and the actual tour, right? Maybe we'll do this every episode between now and then. Who's your podium?
Power rankings.
My podium right now is Pogačar, Roglič, Vingegaard.
I like that. I'm in the same boat, although I put Vingegaard ahead of Roglič. I do think Vingegaard is more likely to win or just not podium at all, though. I think Vingegaard's like, is he healthy? Okay, he's up there, maybe winning or second. But if he's not healthy, maybe he just goes home or doesn't race.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like those three.
Yeah.
Those are good three.
Or supports Matteo Jorgensen and Sepp Kuss in their bid for glory. Yeah.
Where's your
The Eagles are flying.
Guys?
The Eagles are flying at the Dauphiné this week. I love it. I'll love to see it.
Who's
I mean,
my top three?
genuinely, if Vingegaard, Dane, I think you're correct. You're correct in that Vingegaard's either going to be like good or he's going to be like Froome, right? He's just going to be like hanging out the back, like losing 15 minutes. And like, because that's the reality, right? Like we're talking about elite sport where a couple percent is the difference between the top guy and the dude just in the middle of the tour surviving, right? And he might just be surviving.
He's either going to be 2015 Froome or 2024 Froome. Those are your two options.
Yeah. And that is not shade, right? Like that is just like you need good preparation ahead of the tour, and he's not had it. So that's no shade on Jonas Vingegaard or his incredible talent level.
Right.
But if it's the latter there, if that is the case, if we have 2024 Froome in Vingegaard, God, that is rude. Sorry, I don't think Chris Froome listens to this episode, to the podcast, but
So much shade coming from Colorado. What's going on?
that is a lot of shade. I don't know. I'm just feeling spicy today.
I like it.
So let's assume that Jonas Vingegaard, if it's that sort of latter scenario, and he just doesn't have it this year. Sepp Kuss is their guy, right?
I would think so. Yeah, and given what we've seen from him, the Vuelta last year, Matteo Jorgensen did win a pretty big race not that long ago, but I think Kuss is better Grand Tour bet here.
Yeah.
What
Johnny,
we're talking
Johnny's
about?
shaking his head.
We're talking about Jorgensen and Sepp Kuss. We've even talked about Remco. You guys
Johnny's shaking his head because
you guys have got
he hates
crazy
America.
pills going on.
But I would point out that Sepp Kuss is a more recent Grand Tour winner than Remco Evenepoel. So
Only because his teammates let him win.
I don't even agree with that statement, but that's fine. Go ahead, Johnny.
It
give us your
literally
takes.
happened. We spent a week reporting on it.
Didn't happen.
So here's one reason why I think Sepp has a better chance. There's actually not that many time trial kilometers this year, which is obviously that would be his Achilles heel. There's a 25K TT on stage, I think 7. It's quite flat. Actually, it's completely flat. Like the starts at 243 meters and the high point is 454. So, not nothing, but not much of a climb. The second TT is the final day, the Monaco to Nice day. And remember, this year's Tour de France does not finish in Paris. It finishes in Nice. That day goes over Col d'Ez. So you start at 8 meters, basically sea level, right, in Monaco. And you go over La Turbie, which is 480, and then Col d'Ez, which is 508. So it's like there's a fairly significant amount of climbing. That Col d'Ez TT is a famous like Paris-Nice time trial. And I think Sepp can actually do okay in that one. So I think if Vingegaard is not the guy, I think you're looking at a Sepp top 5. I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and I'm not just saying that because of our shared nationality / state.
I'm mostly saying it because of his mother
really
lives
quick,
around
though,
the corner from
we
me.
should point out everything we're saying right here about the other tour contenders. By the time this show comes out, there's a TT at the Dauphiné that could tell us a lot about Roglic and
That's true.
and Evenepoel. We'll see.
I'm not I was the Allah believer in me was rekindled during this Giro, right? What is the opposite of that for Evenepoel?
Ooh,
Never
Evenepoel.
Nevenepoel?
Yeah.
Never Evenepoel?
Nice.
Yeah. Wait, so Johnny, who's your top 3?
Your podium, yeah.
Roglic, Pogačar, Evenepoel.
Roglic for the win.
Oh.
Wow.
I think so.
I feel like he's just being different for
Maybe.
the sake of it.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So we got Roglic, Pogačar. You said Evenepoel was your third?
Yeah, we should make a
Never
different
Evenepoel.
prediction each week, so then we can clip out the audio to prove ourselves afterwards.
The one that was most right?
Yeah.
I think so. Any other contenders for this Tour de France? That's pretty much the list.
David Gaudu, Theo Gegenhardt. I'd put
We're
Theo
working
in
on
the same
David
bracket as Sepp, if we're being honest.
Oof.
Like, tell me
fair.
the difference.
I think that's fair. No, that's fair. I think that's
disagree,
totally fair.
But
Although Teo's coming back from a horrible injury.
Teo's
so
coming back
maybe
from an injury.
slight-
Hasn't done much recently as Sepp Kuss.
What about Simon and Adam Yates? Adam Yates was third behind. He was the next best after Pogačar and Vingegaard.
Johnny
He
has
did have a
found his
massive
patriotism.
concussion.
Listen to this. He's rattling off names from the island. That's pretty wild, right?
The island. I'm going to start calling it that. The nice thing about having the tour only 3 weeks away is that you can just spend the whole time talking about it. And even if your information or your takes age out within 24 hours, it literally doesn't matter because everyone's so excited.
Yep. All right. So we've made our picks. We've got our podiums here. They're subject to change, right? Like that's the small print is they're subject to change between now and the start of the race. We will lock them in ahead of the race though. A very early promo. Keep an eye out because we are going to have our fantasy game once again for the Tour de France. So if you haven't played our fantasy before, it's super easy. So you pick one rider each stage, and you can only use that rider one time. So like you're going to have to decide when you use Tadej Pogačar, for example. You're going to have to each day decide whether, do I think it's going to be a breakaway day or a GC day? Are the sprinters going to get caught out? It's a super easy game to play. You can create little leagues with your friends. They can be open or closed. You can lock them if you want to just play with your buddies. We'll obviously have a Placeholders league, although this podcast becomes known as the Tour Daily throughout the entirety of the Tour de France, as well as Tour de France Femme. Anyway, just to sort of put that in the back of your mind. So keep an eye out for fantasy. Start looking through those Tour de France course profiles. Start thinking about who you might want to be picking. And we'll remind you before the start of the race to go sign up for that, because it's lots of fun. And I don't know, we could have some kind of prize for the winner of the Placeholders League, I think. We'll come up with something good.
I always like to pick the big guys in the first week so that the anxiety just goes away. It's like Pogačar stage 1.
That's not a bad idea, because if they get hurt, they crash out, like they're gone.
I actually genuinely, I think if you try to get too fancy about it, like save Pogačar for some big day in the third week, I think, you're basically just increasing the likelihood that the riders you're saving are not going to be actually available. So I personally agree with that particular tactic. We are now going to head into Escape After Dark. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the contenders. We're going to make fun of Jonny for hating his own country, and we're going to chat about all that. So if you are a member, stick around. If you're not a member, go sign up. escapecollective.com/member. Sign up now. Don't get hit by that paywall at the Tour de France. Make sure you get all of our episodes during the Tour de France. We're going to be doing daily podcasts, but there will be bonus content for members in those episodes. And our rest day episodes are going to be members only. And some of you I know love our rest day episodes. So sign up now. Make sure you don't miss any of that stuff. Get that member feed up and running. And we'll see you next week. Actually, I almost forgot.
Oh,
we're going to get played out today on some special tunes. So we're gonna play out into After Dark on some special tunes. This is...
Oh, what's it going to be? My guess is Helicopter by Block Party.
Incorrect. This is in honor of World Bicycle Day, Monday, June 3rd. We are going to play this Turkmen banger that was part of the 45-minute long news show on Turkmen State Television. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go read Ian Trellore's story. We got another Garbanguli update over on the site right now, and we're going to play you out on this year's World Bicycle Day Turkmen banger.